Is your business pootling along instead of firing on all cylinders? Are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and frustrated? Do your dreams of financial freedom feel a long way off? Then this is the podcast for you. Little Voice, Big Business with your host, Nadia.
Hello and welcome to Little Voice Big Business with me, Nadia. Today's episode is number 4 and is a slightly different format to the one I had previously planned because I have something really important to tell you all about. Since I launched the podcast on Friday, today is now Monday, something rather intriguing happened and it didn't go entirely according to plan. And I think, well, I'll tell you the story and we'll see what you think. On Friday morning, I got the notification from iTunes that this podcast, Little Voice Big Business, was finally live. Yeah! I was just rushing out the door to go to, I'm going to own up to this actually. I was going to a spa with my friend and obviously it's important to have a good work-life balance, but essentially I was skiving off and I thought, oh cool, well before I go, I'll quickly tell a few people in some Facebook groups that the podcast has gone live because, I'd been mentioning it and I don't know, I just thought it would be good to kind of put it out there in a really informal way. Just to tell people that it was there and perhaps just sort of take the first step to going public, but without it being a really big deal. So I posted in a couple of supportive Facebook groups that I'm in to say, hey there, just to let you know, my podcast, Little Voice Big Business, is finally here. Just, if you get a minute, take a look kind of thing. And what happened next was not exactly what I had anticipated. And before I tell you what happened, just as a quick reminder, do you remember in episode 1 I told you about the whole little voice thing? Well, sounding the way I do, producing a podcast is not exactly the most comfortable experience, but I wanted to do it to push out more people, and I figured that sounding young and small is not a reason to hide away in your shed and do nothing. In creating the podcast, I was overcoming some emotional obstacles. I was feeling a little bit apprehensive about the podcast and, if I'm honest, a little bit vulnerable. So I put it out there and I said, here it is, guys. What do you think? Thinking that, I was posting it in groups where I've been offering value and support to lots of people. And, this was finally a chance for me to do something which I valued their feedback on. I tested the water, and that's when things took this unexpected turn. Literally an hour later after posting, I checked back on Facebook to see I had indeed got a comment, one solitary comment in this female-only entrepreneur group. And there it was, in print. I had my first hater. Now, I never thought I would use that word because, to be honest, I didn't really know what it was. Call me naive, but why would somebody be super mean? I mean, I've always been taught that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Even if I do think something's pretty cruddy, I'm not going to tell them. I might provide some constructive feedback, but I wouldn't deliberately be mean. It's just not it's not polite. It's not a nice thing to do. Apparently, this one very forthright woman thought that my voice was irritating and that it was put on, and that I had somehow chosen to create a podcast called Little Voice Big Business with a little voice that I had sort of was pretending and that I was impersonating something. I have no idea why anyone would choose to sound like this, but anyway. And I saw the words on the screen and I couldn't believe it. I was just so shocked. I thought, holy crap, I've gone out there. I've gone out on a limb. I've put myself on the line. I've told my story. I mean, episode 1, all about my story and my little voice. It's warts and all. And, someone had completely misunderstood my intentions and was making this crazy kind of judgment and insult against me. And at that moment, I thought, what the heck am I doing? Why would I invite this kind of scrutiny? Why would I deliberately put myself on the line and invite people to take the piss out of me, publicly shame me, hurl insults at me? Why would I do that? I mean, I'm not a complete idiot. All I wanted to do at that point was just chuck it in, head off to the spa and just forget it. But I couldn't do that because on the way, I thought, oh my God, no one understands. Can't tell my friend because she probably wouldn't even know what podcasting was. And, my husband, don't think he really understood what was going on either. So I went into a different podcast support group called Podcasters Paradise, which I'm in, founded by the wonderful John Lee Dumas. And I told people that I'd got my first hater. And I also put it in Kimra's Freedom Hackers. And something amazing happened at that point. I went off to have my massage and a facial, and I didn't really think anything of it. I just said, oh God, guys, look what happened. I can't believe it. And I guess at that point they must have sensed that I was feeling a bit vulnerable about what had happened. But I can only describe what then happened as a backlash. I love that word. I don't get to use it very often. There was a backlash. Said it again. And people from all over the world, most of whom I'd never met, let alone spoken to or emailed, sent messages of support and encouragement to me. Many of them downloaded my podcast and listened to it. And I guess they were wondering what was going on and what the fuss was all about. But, I realised at that point that people are good. There may have been one hater out there, one mean person, but the number of supportive messages that I received and the amount of positivity and encouragement out there was just incredible. And before I'd even had the chance to email my mailing list or tell my mum and dad that my podcast was live, ratings started pouring in. In just 48 hours, I had hundreds of messages of support. I had loads of 5-star reviews and over 500 downloads. It was amazing, and it really restored my faith in humankind. And I'm so glad that I didn't just can it at that point. I could have just deleted it from Libsyn at that point when the first message came in and gone, do you know what? This podcasting malarkey, it's just not for me. I just can't do it. It's too exposing and embarrassing and awkward. So I'm going to hide. I felt like hiding. And luckily I'd booked to go to the spa or I think I would have gone back to bed. But I wanted to talk to you about haters while we're on the subject, because the messages I received were amazing and there was some really great advice in there. And many people said I should do a podcast about how to deal with haters, because I guess a lot of people are struggling to deal with this kind of criticism, and also perhaps it's even stopping them from doing stuff in the first place, which I think is really, really sad. In the past, this was an extreme situation, but in the past I know that when someone said something mean to me, it's upset me for days. Okay, don't as a joke now say loads of mean stuff to see how long it takes me to recover. Because, it would take me ages. I'd have to talk to my mum, my sister, a few friends, send some emails, maybe eat quite a lot of crap, maybe some ice cream and some popcorn, watch some trashy TV, and generally feel really sorry for myself. It would take me ages to get over it. So I guess I was impressed with how quickly I was able to just move on, and I think partly that was because of the extreme reaction that I got. But I think now going forward, with this great advice I've received from everyone, which I'm about to share, hopefully this will help you as well to be a bit more thick-skinned, something which I remember, being told as a kid, you need to get a thick skin. Oh, I don't want a thick skin, that sounds a bit like a rhino or something, but I think being able to stand up to people and their negativity is a really good thing, particularly in business, because quite frankly, people can be shits, and I think we need to learn to deal with it so we can get on with running our businesses. Let's start off with some of the comments that people left on the subject of haters, which I wanted to share with you all. Venetia says, Nadia, you are officially my new and bestest idol. Good on you, girl, and I wish you continued off the charts success. Well, that's pretty nice. And then Camilla Gornia says, haters will hate, but I love the turn of events. People can also be so loving. Keep doing what you do. Getting a hater means you're doing something right. Nikki said, congrats on standing in your power and shaking that mess off. Brilliant. And Krista Von Villa says, this is so great, Nadia. There is indeed a gift with every dark experience. Good on you for talking about it. Nicolette Barrett, girlfriend, go for it. Don't let one bad apple spoil your fruitful tree. Yeah, exactly. I think it's time to not let one bitchy comment ruin our day, let alone ruin weeks and weeks and stop us from achieving great things. Next up is Kevin, and he sent me a really nice message. He said he'd lived through what I described, but what I experienced in a day took him 9 years. He said that with every teaching session that he's done, anytime he's grabbed a mic and said hello, he's pissed someone off. He said it's the reason that he's speaking in the first place. He has a different perspective in most cases than the norm. And after nearly 10 years of slugging it out and sometimes crawling back into bed, he now sees that the startups he's working with are growing in momentum. And he said that my post really blessed him. So that's really nice. I think that it goes to show that this stuff with haters is felt strongly and widely. And that, people are struggling to deal with this stuff and it can take a long time. But that we've got this inner strength. Now, Tess shared this video with me, which featured a quote from Theodore Roosevelt, which I want to read to you because it's kind of awesome. It says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." Yeah, Theodore Roosevelt, well said. In fact, very, very well said. He who dares greatly. We're putting ourselves out there into the world when we run our businesses. We're exposing ourselves and our vulnerabilities to people. And it's so easy for somebody to criticise us or slag us off from behind a computer. I mean, seriously, only criticise what I'm doing if you disagree with what I'm saying, or you think I'm not doing a great job, but don't get personal. I think it's actually quite pathetic to slag somebody off for physical attributes. If you think they're ugly or their hair is terrible, why would you tell them? And particularly if it's out of context, if you're running a business, you would expect people to evaluate what you're doing based on the thing it is that you do and your opinions, not the way you look or how you sound. So, based on all the comments, the hundreds of comments that I received, it turned out that haters are a really common, I love this, a common phenomenon. You don't get to say that often either, and it's hard to say. It turns out haters are a common phenomenon. And Mary said that she doesn't place any energy into these people, because at the end of the day, we are living our passion. She said she gets it all the time, especially on her YouTube channel. She says, I know I'm only here to serve my tribe in the way that I can, and nobody else can. Like you, you're the only person in the world that can deliver what you do. So if people don't resonate, see you later. You keep going, because there are a lot of people in this world and your tribe are waiting for you. I love that. The idea that, you are going to appeal to your people and not to everybody else. And in fact, you don't want to appeal to everybody else, because not everyone's going to like you. And if you try and please everyone, as the saying goes, you won't please anybody at all. There's a really great quote here from Darren Hardy that Casey Gray shared with me. He said, if everybody likes you, you're doing it wrong. And another quote is, there's no surefire answer for success, but there is one for failure. Try to make everybody happy all the time. And he said, your hater is just telling you that you're doing it right. I stirred the pot, apparently something inside of them. Yeah, it seems that having a hater is not necessarily a bad sign. And Katerina Gassett says that haters are going to hate. She knows how hard it is. She was on Blab, and there were 3 other guests, and she didn't have that many claps. And she said that she felt really bad about it, and that people can feel... You can feel mean when people don't say nice things to you. And, I've been on Blab and there's some crazy dude just joined in and it was really odd. And he was saying some strange stuff. It was a very uncomfortable experience. So I think, there are some crazies out there. And I think being a hater is actually kind of cowardly, don't you think? You're sat behind your computer slagging somebody off randomly, and in that way, I don't think I'm going to give them too much credit. And there's Mark Green says, everyone's brave behind their keyboard. Yeah, exactly. It's easy to just say mean stuff. And some people are just mean. Lisa Sadel says, it's hard when you finally have the courage to put yourself out there. I finally learnt that you'll never please everyone. And now I don't try to. The ones who are meant to attract you do. And it leaves the haters behind. They generally hate on everyone, so don't take it personally. Well done for not pulling the plug. It was tempting, Lisa, believe me. I think it's also weird how, when you put something out into the world, the people who are negative tend to have louder voices than the people who say nice things. Sometimes, as Patrick says, people live to belittle others' work, and they tend to scream louder than the people who like what you do. Just breathe. It's all part of the game. # water off a duck's back. I think that's right. I'm going to try and have a more oily back, Patrick, so that this stuff just slides off and I don't take it too personally. There's been loads of people telling me just to ignore them. And Wayne Dyer, Bruce points out that Wayne Dyer said, what they think of me is none of my business. And I think that's a really great quote. What they think of me is none of my business. And I think perhaps the answer is not to read reviews or comments. Well, I'm not sure about that because I really am curious. I'm not sure I could not read them. And also I think when it's in a Facebook group, you want to engage with your audience. So the idea that you would just not, if I hadn't have engaged, I wouldn't have read any of this stuff. So I think it's important to kind of stay connected to your people. But then perhaps if you don't recognise yourself in what they're saying, or you think it comes from a place of meanness, then that's when you just let it go. Loads of people have been saying that it's a sign that you're doing something. Stephen Gomez says, you'll never have any haters if you produce nothing. Action always brings out the worst in some people. but they're a small and very vocal few. The rest will love your work. And I think that's true if you don't do anything. Like if I did stay at home and watch TV, I wouldn't have any haters, apart from people who maybe wanted to change the TV channel and sit on the sofa that I was hogging. I wouldn't have too many haters, but then I wouldn't also be creating or putting anything out into the world. Now this is a really interesting point that I hadn't considered before. Joanna Hunter said, remember that what we think about the outside world is only ever a reflection on our inner world. That means that if a hater hates you, you just held up a big old mirror to something they don't like inside themselves, and it really has nothing to do with you at all. Yeah, that's interesting that sometimes, for whatever reason, you put yourself out there and something about what you're doing has an impact or reflects back on somebody else. You know, the other thing is, maybe that person had a really bad day. That sounds really trite, but you never know, do you, that what's going on in somebody else's life. So I try to see it from that point of view as well. And perhaps if you do something and you're not being all beige, you're being bold and putting yourself out there in a slightly alternative way, you're more likely to rub people up the wrong way. If you're wishy-washy, like Jean Caton says, she said, the good news is you're confidently taking a position on an issue and not hiding in the background or being wishy-washy. So I guess then you're going to invite the haters to have a view. And Michael goes one step further, Michael Neely. He says, hey Nadia, congratulations, getting haters is actually a very good thing. The polarization between people loving you and hating you means that you're delivering a strong message. I'm always much more worried about the bland, I don't really have an opinion about him, folks. That would mean my content is forgettable. You must be rocking it. Well, thanks, Michael. I guess I might be. So I think we don't want to be beige, we don't want to be blah. We want to be memorable. And I think when you're memorable, getting a hater is a sign of success. John Lee Dumas says, you know you're onto something when the trolls show up. Which is reminds me of those weird, were they from the 70s or the 80s, those funny troll toys? I just have an image of, a bunch of them with their funny hair sticking up, showing up when you're doing something good. That's not what he means, but yeah, you know you're onto something when the trolls show up. So from that point of view, I think I'll consider it as a good sign. Exactly. And then another key point is to turn it into a positive. Andrew Stotz says that he converts their negative energy into positive energy to improve and make himself better. And then he thanks the haters for the energy boost, which is a really positive way of looking at it. I like that one. And Janae says, let your haters be your motivators, which is cool. I might have a t-shirt made with that on. And yeah, Joe Stevens says, I guess her comment was a blessing in the end. It's a gift. It's not always easy to see that at the time. I think that's the thing. It's hurtful at the time, but as Janae says, turn your haters into motivators. And then finally, shake it off, like water off a duck's back. Or I think maybe I don't want to be a duck. I think maybe I'd rather be like Taylor Swift and shake it off. And I've had lots of people quoting the Shake It Off lyrics back at me. If you're expecting me to burst into song at this point, don't, because unfortunately with this little voice, there is not any ability to sing, unfortunately, so I will spare you that torment and just say Taylor Swift was right, shake it off. So that's what I shall be doing. So for any of you guys who get some mean comments or somebody saying something rude to you, particularly online, I invite you to draw on some of these tips from the awesome people in the communities that I'm in and see if it can help you. And if you have any experiences that you would like to share, then why not visit my website and leave a comment, or join my Facebook group, Little Voice Big Business, and you can tell me about it on there. So fingers crossed you won't get any haters on the one hand, but on the other hand bring them on, because then it means we're doing something interesting. It's been a really interesting few days and I've learnt a lot. So thank you to everyone who shared their advice with me, and I look forward to recording lots more episodes and receiving lots more reviews. So thanks very much for listening. Bye bye for now.
Little Voice, Big Business.